Hey guys, welcome to my channel or welcome back. My name is Kat. I'm a registered and licensed dietitian nutritionist and online nutrition coach. And today we are doing a reaction video. Savy from Savy Writes Books. Savy is a small business owner. She is an author. She is a YouTube creator. She is all things super cool. But she interviewed somebody who was part of a test training group or a test group for a Beachbody infomercial. And within that interview, I even commented on her video. I wasn't even 10 minutes in and I was already livid. I was frustrated. I was just mind blown of some of the things that the Beachbody creators of the test group were doing and having these members do. And so I wanted to talk about it. I wanted to give my opinion. Everything in this video is 100% my opinion. If you've watched my videos before, you likely know my thoughts and feelings around Beachbody. I did have a two-part series deep diving into Beachbody and talking about just some of the concerns that I had with some of the programs and the products. I'll leave those linked down below as well. But I highly encourage you to watch Savy's video that is linked in the description box because that will include the whole video. As this is a reaction video, I've never done a reaction video like this, and so I don't know how much of this I'll actually put into the video itself. I'm assuming that it won't be the entire video, but I'll be reacting to those more problematic areas. Now, not problematic on Savy's part or on the person she was interviewing. This is talking about Beachbody and how they approached this kind of programming for these people. Now, I want to talk a little bit more about Savy. So she is an author. She is a creator here on YouTube. She is a small business owner. She has a lot of videos that go really in depth, lots of really educational information about small business scams. And I really appreciate that. Being an LLC owner, I don't have any like physical products yet, but I still appreciate a lot of the work and the information that she puts out there regarding small businesses. I actually have one of her books and it's told from these three women's point of view. Sculpt Yourself tackles body image, LGBT plus topics, and what it means to be a feminist in the 21st century. And I have a couple of her other books online, not in actual form, but with all that being said, let's go ahead and jump into the video. I also wanted to give a trigger warning that we will be talking about body image concerns. We'll be talking about disordered eating. And so if this is something that triggers you, you might want to skip this one. Your mental health is so much more important than you watching this video. And so if that is something that you struggle with, then maybe skip this one. So let's go ahead and get started.
Hey, what's up, my fellow small business supporters? Savy here. Welcome back to another Friday video. On today's video, we have another special interview for you guys. I remember a few weeks back when I did the interview with a former Beachbody coach who had been part of the company for 7 years, and we looked into her history and everything that she did. A lot of people really liked that and wanted some more interviews with people who had previously been involved with these kind of things. Today, I have another special guest on my channel. Like the previous guest, she has chosen to remain anonymous. As a quick disclaimer about guests who remain anonymous, some guests or some people who have worked for these companies in the past, they have to sign non-disclosure agreements, or they have to, you know, they're not legally allowed to talk about certain things. So we can't expose people's identities for their own privacy. So just for the few pro MLMers in my comments who turn up and are like, you didn't even show who this person was, I don't believe that they're real. Like, you don't have to believe me, but it's more important to me to protect people's privacy, so just like get over it. Anyway, today we have an awesome guest who actually was a part of Beachbody's infomercials. So we are going to get started with an awesome interview and a deep dive into what that process was like. So first of all, I know you're remaining anonymous today, but could you just kind of introduce yourself and talk about, I guess, what your background is involved with MLMs and Beachbody and that kind of thing?
I was living in New York at the time and I was acting, and when you're an actor and you're on casting sites, and a lot of the castings don't pay, but they pay in exposure, and and one of the ones that wasn't paid was Beachbody, but they said, you know, you're going to get a gym membership. We're going to take care of your food. You'll lose weight. And then if you have good enough results, you'll get to be in the infomercial. So I was banking on that exposure, and I submitted for an audition. They contacted me back. I went in person and auditioned with Sean T. He ended up teaching us a bunch of dances, and it was super fun. And then I got a call back that I was cast, and we went from there.
Awesome. Okay. The whole paying and exposure thing is way too relatable to me, like as a writer. And I'm always telling people the payment and exposure is a scam.
Facts. Exposure does not pay the bills. It's just kind of funny to me that this is something that is across the board in many different areas, because I'm in a lot of dietitian groups, dietitian entrepreneur groups on Facebook and such, and man, the amount of times that this topic in particular, being paid in exposure, comes up so much, and it is something that we are always talking about, that you should not just take things because of exposure. And yes, there is nuance within that and exactly what is going on and who it's helping, who it could reach, that kind of thing. But just in general, if you are ever on the other side and you are trying to reach out to professionals, maybe consider something else than saying paid in exposure. Just saying.
It's the worst.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you ended up getting cast in the commercial. And so just to be clear for everyone watching, were you ever a part of the company Beachbody as a salesperson or as a coach, or just as an infomercial person?
I was not an MLM representative. They did try to coach everybody in the group, but we were given a choice. So what happened after they cast you is they ended up casting like 60 people.
Okay.
And not all 60 people were going to be in the infomercial, but you were in the test group. So they divided us up. They gave us all a gym membership to a really fancy gym that was really expensive, that none of us could afford. And we had to come 5 days a week. One group would go very early in the morning, and then I think my group was like at 10:30 or 11. And it was like an hour-long session in the morning of exercise. And every day they would hand you a blue lunchbox full of food. And that was your food. And then on Fridays, you would get one for 3 days. So you would get your Friday, Saturday, and Sunday on Fridays.
So I'm going to stop right there, because that is already a problem. They're having this group of people, this group of 60 people, the test group, doing something that is different from what the program is offering. It would be different if Beachbody's whole thing was about giving you a gym membership to a fancy place, a fancy gym, and providing all of your meals. Like, you don't have to do any of the meal planning or preparation or anything. If they were providing those two things, then that would be different, but they are not. So it's just the idea of having people do something that is different from the actual product and what those people using the product will be doing is just the first thing that I see wrong with it. And that's just talking about the product's offering itself. Now, on the other side, or another concern, is the fact that that is not doable for a majority of people, especially for the target audience that Beachbody is trying to reach. Beachbody, in my opinion, from my experience, what I have seen, their target is for more of that stay-at-home mom kind of audience. And even more so, those who are looking for something to do in order to create more income. And people who generally are looking for more sources of income, they're not going to have this kind of meal service. And maybe there is always going to be someone saying like, well, what about me? Or what about this case? But in general, people who are in the target audience of Beachbody, most of the time they aren't going to a fancy gym and getting all of their meals provided for them. The whole point of Beachbody is being able to work out at home. Just saying.
And that's kind of what happened. So that happened for 3 months. They would pull people out as they lost weight and got the results they wanted, and they would give them like days to go in and do their afters. Their after shots. Oh, sorry. My mind's all over the place. So we did take before shots before we actually started exercising. And that was kind of sketchy. So they asked us to come in and bring our own clothes. And I was not aware of all the tactics I should have been, but they ended up taking most of the makeup off my face, throwing my hair up in a ponytail that looked kind of messy. And then they made me change into clothes that were like 2 sizes too small. And then they put us in front of lights that weren't super flattering, and they made us take off like our shoes so we were completely flat foot, so that there was no definition to our legs. So we're not wearing our own clothes. If you see those before and after
Yeah,
images,
I'm looking at the before and after pictures.
they're not totally authentic. And I even asked about it. They said, you know, we do these things because we can't manipulate the images, because if we manipulate the images, people will know.
Right.
So they do as much as they can without actually editing the photos, just so it's posing basically. And yeah, so
before and after photos are something that I don't do for various reasons. Basically, before and after pictures don't tell me anything about the sustainability of the program that that person is doing. Like, that's one of the issues. 2, it doesn't tell me anything about their health, because you can have weight loss in very unhealthy ways. You can do it like intentionally unhealthy ways and see that weight loss, or you could have something going on digestive system wise or other health condition wise where the result is that weight loss that is not intentional and not healthy. And I always try to encourage people to not choose to do a program based on the before and after, because even if there was that change and it was a healthy change for that person, how somebody responds to a specific food plan or a specific kind of movement activity plan, their body is going to react in a different way. You can have somebody have the exact same intake of food. You can have someone doing the exact same amount and style and type of exercise or training and look completely different. And so the idea of like selling a product or program based on a before and after, I just kind of see it as kind of a scammy practice. And I think I mentioned this in my video talking about scammy nutrition things and just things to be aware of, because it really doesn't talk about how that program or plan or product is going to impact you. It's just putting that focus on that other person when we don't know how your body is going to respond to that. And in addition to that, a lot of times those after pictures, and we'll talk more about this when she talks about the after pictures, but that's not where they're going to stay. That is like the lowest, and then usually there's kind of, even if there's not this full rebound that we often see with yo-yo dieting, like this lose X amount, gain X amount back plus a little bit more, back again and again. Even if they don't do that, what happens a lot of times is that they'll go up even just a little bit more, maybe not where they were before, but they will go a little bit back. That can put a whole lot of shame on that person when they see that after picture and how they were and how they finished strong, you know, with the program, and they were so excited and everything, and now a week later, couple weeks later, they don't look exactly how they did in that after picture. There is some shame that's gonna come from that. There is some shame that's gonna happen whenever that person falls a little bit away from that after picture. And as I've mentioned, I think in like every video so far, is that definition of health. I have it behind me, that physical, mental, social, and emotional well-being. And if we are solely focused on that physical piece, and if it's harming any of the other areas of health, then it's truly not healthy. Just the amount of manipulation that is put into before and after pictures is wild. It's just frustrating.
those clothes are not mine that you see in the before and after photo. Those are clothes I was given that were too small at my before.
Interesting. Okay, so the before and after picture I'm looking at, you mentioned, it says here that it was 30 pounds in 90 days. So did you actually lose 30 pounds in 90 days?
Yes and no. So
okay.
Was they wanted to do a 30-day and see how many people would lose enough weight in 30 days. So there was like 2 or 3 different times that they pulled people out of the group. So I went all 90 days because I couldn't lose weight and they were getting really frustrated with me.
Mm-hmm.
So they would.
Okay, this is not related to the Beachbody at all, but when Chewy ran in, it reminded me of that newscaster or that journalist. I don't know exactly what their position was, but this one, but that one where he is talking to that person and then the little child runs in and the mom just runs after her is just hilarious. I thought it was funny and I thought it was super cute that Chewy made a guest appearance. I think that's Chewy.
And see, I didn't know this at the time. I had mentioned this in the email, but I have lupus. And so,
oh no.
Yeah. And I didn't know this at the time. So I've been struggling with this for 15 years. And I just diagnosed this like 3 months ago, after being told that I'm like crazy, but that's another topic. But when my lupus flares, it affects my thyroid. So I either will gain a bunch of weight or I'll lose a bunch of weight. So while everyone else was losing weight, and I calculated they were only giving us 800 to 1,000 calories a day is what we were
Oh my God, that's like not enough at all.
It's not. We were so hungry, and they were making us do an hour of dancing every morning, which we were not doing the size program. We were together being led by a dance instructor every morning, doing high intensity workouts. And then they would encourage us to use the gym afterwards to continue to work out. There was a pool. We were encouraged to work out on our weekends, and when we were encouraged to work out at home and film it. And that's what you see in the infomercials when people are filming at home. It's not actual people that are using the program. It's the people in their test group that are filming at home to make it look like they just found them.
Gotcha. Okay. So you guys would like film yourself at home doing the workouts?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. That's the only time we ever actually use the actual program is when we were filming at home to give them footage that looked like it was kind of behind the scenes and more authentic.
So I'm shocked that they're like, you can only eat 800 to 1,000 calories a day. Like when I've used like fitness tracking apps and stuff in the past, if you go below like 1,200 calories of food on the app starts to like warn you and is like, it is bad for your body to eat less than 1,200 calories a day. Like that's a thing. So
yeah.
So what were you allowed to eat? Like, was it like Shakeology?
So I'm going to stop right there and then we'll go into what she was allowed to eat. But Savy, you are 100% right. Once we go below that 1,200, even for a lot of people, 1,300, 1,400 is still too low, especially when you add on top of that the hour of training that she was doing every morning, or at least Monday through Friday. And in addition to that, they were encouraging them to stay behind and do additional swimming and doing the programs at home. Like, even if you were just laying in bed, like basal metabolic rate or resting metabolic rate, you would still need to eat more. And so the fact that they were literally starving these people is just so frustrating. And this is around the area where I made that comment on Savy's video, like, I am livid. And I took a couple of days, because if I would have recorded this video right as soon as I finished this, I would have just gone off. But I decided to gather my thoughts, gather my notes, and approach this in a more calm fashion. But still, listening to this is just so frustrating. That's inhumane, in my opinion, to have this program, to do that to this many people, to do that to one person. That is so inhumane, in my opinion, because we need more energy, even if we were just laying in bed for the majority of people. And so some of the reasons why it is not recommended to go below 1,200 or even higher, like you might not really be recommended to go below 1,400 or 1,500 depending on what's going on, but that increases your risk of nutrient deficiencies so much. We don't just need food and energy to literally give our bodies energy. Calories are a form of energy. We also need that food to get in nutrients, micronutrients. So it goes beyond just the macros, protein, fats, and carbs. There are micronutrients that our bodies are not able to produce on their own. And when we have that reduction that low, it's really hard to get in that amount of micronutrients. In my opinion, how we should approach nutrition, every action that we're doing, if you're trying to make changes, if you're trying to implement nutrition related changes, it needs to be something that is sustainable, because if it is not something that is sustainable, then there is literally no point in doing it, unless it's like a very specific like medical nutrition therapy need. Like, for example, something that pops in my head, so if somebody has pancreatitis, if they're in the hospital and they had to stay a couple of nights, we would put them on a clear liquid diet. Now, that was ordered by the doctor, it was overseen by them, we would chart on them, we would keep an eye on them and everything, but that was just meant to reduce some of that inflammation going on from pancreatitis. And then once they were done with that, they were able to go back and increase their normal kind of calorie intake. And that is so different from having this kind of weight loss diet, especially when the program is not even the program that the program is advertising. And another reason why we don't want to lower our calories that much is because that does impact our metabolism. If we start eating, under consuming on those calories, metabolism will respond by slowing down. That is a fact. But that is what happens when we reduce our calories too low. That impacts our metabolism in a negative way. Another reason why it's not recommended to go that low is because catabolism or muscle breakdown starts to happen. Muscles, lean body mass, that's expensive to keep. It's expensive for your body to maintain. And so if you are under consuming the amount of energy that you need, the body is going to get its energy in some way or another. And so it'll do that by breaking down some of your lean body mass in order to provide that energy. So protein, amino acids, it can go through something called gluconeogenesis, or gluco for glucose, neos, new, and genesis, creation. And so we don't necessarily have to have carbs in order for our bodies to be like, yo, we need carbs. We're gonna create this out of these amino acids. It's the same reason why if somebody's on a keto diet, they can't do this like super high protein intake. They have a high fat intake, but their protein is still going to be moderate, because if they go too high on the amount of protein that they're consuming beyond the threshold, then their body can convert that into glucose, and that can kick them out of ketosis. So that's just kind of a side note, but kind of going back to what we were talking about, having that low amount of calories, that can really impact your lean body mass, again, in a negative way. Also, your hunger hormones and your stress hormones are going to be impacted by that reduced amount of calories as well. All right, so let's hear what her plan was, what her intake was.
That they were giving you, or like,
Yep.
what? How did they make your meal plans and justify starving you?
Everybody had the same meal plan. Your
Okay.
breakfast, Shakeology.
I'm sorry, I have to stop it again. The fact that everybody had the same meal plan. I think there was a difference between like the women and the men, but first off, that doesn't only negate any of the unique nutrient profiles that somebody has, but that also just completely doesn't address any of the actual like the social determinants of health. Like, lots of different things are impacted when making a plan for someone. It goes beyond just the macronutrients and the calories that they need. It really needs to be broken down from what their goals are, to the different skills that are needed to get to a healthier place, to the different practices that we need to focus on, to the different actions and the implementation of those actions. That is all done and important for that long-term sustainable practice. Just giving out a meal plan is something that I cannot see as something that is promoting that whole health, that true health piece, especially that sustainability piece. We need to have a plan that not only is affecting that physical part, but also helping in all the different areas. And by just giving them a meal plan, just giving them food, that does nothing to help that long-term approach and the whole health in general. That's not teaching them how to approach food around events or around holidays or even just around normal everyday life. I'll continue. I'm sorry. Let's go on.
Your snack was a tablespoon of almond butter, and not like even a full-size apple, but like a really small gala apple. And then for lunch, you'd usually have like butter lettuce with maybe a chicken breast. And sometimes they would give you like a teaspoon of cheese, and that was like the best. And then you would have another snack that might be like carrot sticks and hummus, or carrot sticks and like a teaspoon of, or not teaspoon, like a tablespoon of egg salad. And then for dinner, you would have like a chicken breast and then maybe some sauteed peppers and onions. So it was very low food. It's not even what they offer in their program.
This is 1 tablespoon. That is all that she was allowed for her snack of almond butter and a small apple. She said that they would give her a tablespoon of egg salad. And on the days that they were allowed to have cheese, she would have 1 teaspoon. A tablespoon is 3 teaspoons. So 1/3 of this was the amount of cheese that she was able to have. I talked about Beachbody's nutrition programs in my 2-part series. And I even had a concern over the amount of food that was provided in those programs. This is even less. And again, you're talking about what is the goal of this? They are trying to get people prepared for that infomercial. The infomercial that is supposed to be selling a very specific product. And that very specific product is not the same thing that they're having these people do. Even taking out the whole starvation that they were putting these people through, and that, in my opinion, and you can argue this, but inhumane treatment, because yes, I do think that starving people for the aesthetic, any aesthetic goal or any kind of goal in order surrounding promoting a product and having it sell, I think that is wrong. I think that is scammy. I think that is inhumane, and I am not here for it. And I think that everybody should know that this is what happened. This potentially could still be something that they do for infomercials, and they need to address this because that is not healthy. Again, going back to that definition of health, how is anything that this person's experience, what they're talking about, how does that impact, how does that fit into that definition of health? Because for me, there is no part of that that is healthy. This is a health company. This is a company that is trying to sell a healthy lifestyle, a healthy product. And the fact that this is the absolute opposite of health, in my opinion, really frustrates me. It is infuriating the amount of people who have disordered eating habits and who have really messed up body image issues and really messed up images of what they should eat, really falling into food shame and food guilt and body shame because of companies banking off of individuals' insecurities. I have a big problem with that. Other infomercial actors, if this is in any way similar to your experience, not even if it's not Beachbody related, like any kind of health experience like this, we need to give a voice to those people because it is not healthy. It is not promoting health. And it's not to say that you have to like chase after health. Like if you want to get to a healthier place, that's great. If you are fine doing what you're doing and putting health kind of not really as a priority, that is okay. I am not going to shame somebody to do healthy practices, but I am going to call out people who are doing or calling what they are doing and promoting to people, what they are putting people through. If they're calling that health and it is not health, then that is something that needs to be called out. More light needs to be put on these kind of practices, these nutrition scammy practices that are really harmful. Again, my opinion, but I can back it up at least.
So like the results can't be met unless somebody's starving themselves. And like everybody.
That's like legitimate starving yourself at that point.
We were hungry. And the fact that I didn't know that I had autoimmune disease, but restricting my calories causes flares. So I was really not losing weight. Like I was holding on to weight like crazy, and they weigh you in front of everybody like every day. So it was really embarrassing, and just
Again, so weight loss does not mean that your program is good. Like, weight loss does not equate to health. Weight loss does not equate to sustainability. Weight loss tells me nothing about how you're actually feeling, how your energy levels are, how your mood is doing, how your focus, your like physical energy, but also your mental energy, how you're doing overall in all aspects of health. Your weight is such a tiny, 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 tiny little picture of that. And the fact that there was so much emphasis being placed on that, and they were doing those weigh-ins in front of other people, I just cannot imagine the amount of damage that does to a person. Even when I was competing in a very weight focused competition, so I was a Taekwondo. I have my 3rd degree black belt in Taekwondo. I actually visited the Kukkiwon when I was in South Korea last year, side note. But even there, when we would do the weigh-ins, it was done like in a separate room, or if it was in a larger area, it was done like with curtains. Even when I'm doing nutrition check-ins with people, sometimes people will tell me their weight, but for a lot of times, like, I don't even care. Like, not that I don't care. I don't know how to say that right, but when we're doing a check-in, your weight really, it's just another data point. I am more concerned about what were the challenges that went on this past week. How were you able to implement the action plan or the specific action that we talked about last week? We talked about adding maybe a little bit more protein to your afternoon snack last week. How did you do with that? I'm more concerned about that than whatever the scale says. If you are ever looking for a plan, ask yourself if it's sustainable. If it's not, hard no, move on, bye, get that out of your life. You don't need it. It's not going to help you in any way. It's more likely to cause harm than anything else, in my opinion. Again, I don't know how many times I have to say that, but I just want to make sure everybody know. And then there was the other point that she mentioned about going into her flare, her autoimmune flare, with her lupus. And if this person who did the interview is watching, I cannot imagine how it feels to do a health program that actually makes your health even harder. The amount of stress that is put on your body whenever you have a calorie deficit, especially that low, is just another reason why I talk about these things. For other people who maybe didn't experience, that doesn't mean that their body didn't have a stress response. Having that calorie restriction, like she talks about, that is gonna put stress on the body. And there are a lot of other ways that we can see chronically high levels of stress going on in your body. Cortisol is going to impact how your body is utilizing your glucose. It can make an impact on your insulin sensitivity. And so sometimes when people are having a lot of blood sugar crashes, that can be a sign that some kind of stress is going on. A lot of times when people just think of stress, they think of more of like your mood or kind of your thoughts around your stress and everything. But even your mood, that can be impacted by actual stress and stress hormones in your body going on. Your body is focusing its efforts on doing what it needs to do. It's not really having that priority of making sure that you are able to think clearly and you're bright and just cheery. Like, that is not gonna be a priority for your body to really focus on. It's focusing on keeping you going from that reduction of calories. When you're in that constant state of stress, your body is not really going to focus on that digestion piece. Your digestion is going to be impacted, and when our digestion is impacted, that can also impact our microbiome, which that can also impact our whole digestive health. And so there are legitimate concerns when we're talking about health, to our digestive health, to our mental health, to even our reproductive health. Even with our immune health, chronically high levels of cortisol can negatively impact our immune health. So again, another reason why putting this stress on your body, if you really don't need to, like, I don't see the need to do that. And if you want to get to a healthier place, this doesn't fit along with it. It's not promoting health.
Demoralizing almost, because everyone else was losing weight and I knew that I was following the program. Like, I would go home and my boyfriend would have pizza and I'd just go to the bedroom and cry. Like, I was so hungry. And everybody in the group was joking about it. It's not funny, but like every single woman.
That little note of her with her boyfriend having pizza and her having to go to her room and just cry. That's another example, because social well-being was being harmed in that time. That is incongruent with that definition of health.
Every single woman that did the test group lost her period. Like, we all lost our menses.
That's
and it was just
horrifying.
Yeah, we were all so hungry. So I ended up going the 90 days. They extended me because I wouldn't lose weight. And during this time, they were kind of picking out their favorite.
Their menstrual cycles were impacted by the low amount of food that they were eating and the additional activity and the whole total stress that their body was experiencing. There is something that it used to be called the female athlete triad, and that was replaced several years ago now by what is called REDS, or relative energy deficiency in sports. That gives us a better overall picture than just that female athlete triad, because this is something that happens or can happen to males as well. The female athlete triad, yes, is still part of REDS, but the female athlete triad is mostly focused on that bone health and then also your menstruation, your menstrual cycle. But there is so much more that can be impacted by having energy deficit and being an athlete or having that kind of training. So that triangle, which is funny that we're talking about a triangle and talking about Beachbody, but that female athlete triad talking about the overall low intake of energy, their bone health, which, you know, that's not something that they tested in here. So when you're talking about REDS overall in that bigger picture, there are lots of different areas that having low energy can do, specifically to people who are training, who are doing this kind of focused physical activity. Having that reduction so low in calories, that impacts your estrogen levels, which very much impacts how your monthly cycle goes. The change in estrogen that can come from that low amount of energy intake, that has a role in bone health. And so that bone health is not something that's often thought about, but if she is showing signs having those problems with it, with her menses, that is also a sign that we need to look at bone health and see how that is going. And this is something that is really important when you're talking especially about teenagers, kids, teenagers, young adult athletes, because their bone health is not fully developed and their bones are not fully developed. And so if we're impacting their estrogen levels by under consuming food, that can really impact their whole life. And so that's just another reason why, like, even kids don't need to be put on diets. I'm gonna stop before I get off on a tangent, but it is so important when you are an athlete, when you are trained, even non-athletes, like everybody, it's just important to eat. Just eat, please, eat.
People, ones that they thought would do well in the infomercial, and then also ones they thought would do well as coaches. So there was one girl that had a really large following, and they really were like love bombed her to get her to be a coach. And there was one girl that was a little bit bigger, but she was a great dancer, and you'll see her on all of their infomercials for size. They call her the girl in blue, but they target her hard to become a coach. And then the ones that they didn't target so hard to be coaches, but they wanted to use for the infomercial, was like a girl that was getting married and a girl that was like a fitness instructor, but wanted to get more toned. And so they kind of were picking out of the 60 in the test group who they wanted to like move forward with the company. And they still kind of sold that we could all become coaches. And some people that they didn't target did become coaches, and they didn't do very well, obviously. But I was kind of over it at that point. I just wanted to get through it. And they were not targeting me because I was not losing enough weight. So I was not, I was not getting any love bombs.
The fact that they were targeting specific people, yeah, I can see them doing that because they want to show off the people who are having the best experiences with the non-product. But can we just stop with having brides, like having them feel like they need to do diets, having them feel like they need to change their bodies? There are legitimate companies whose whole focus is on that, like brides, weight loss for brides. That is their company. Weight loss does not make you any more gorgeous than you already are. I am not shaming anybody if they ever want to change their body. I'm mad at the companies who are pushing that narrative that the body needs to change in order to be deemed more beautiful or to look more photogenic. Like, you're already gorgeous in my opinion. That's all I'm gonna say.
Right before you go in for your after, they put you on an even stricter diet for like 3 days. So you're like, all carbs are taken away from you. You're not supposed to drink fluids if you can help it. And then like the night before, you can eat like a sweet potato because it's supposed to like make your muscles kind of pop. And I was so frustrated because I wasn't losing weight. Like at this point, like I was like heading towards like a full blown like trigger warning, like eating disorder. Like I was taking, I was wrapping myself in plastic to sweat. Like I just was so frustrated because I wasn't losing weight and everyone else was. So when I did get to my after, because they cut the program, they were like, we're not extending it, so you're taking your afters. Like I was so weak because I was up all night on the toilet. Like I had wrapped myself in saran wrap. I wasn't eating. I wasn't allowed to drink water. I was so dehydrated. Like all my after footage, like I could barely speak, and I was really, really weak. I was shaking, and you have to go in order. So I wasn't even one of the first people to go. So like, so I was waiting. So I was just waiting for my after shot so I could just have like water. And they took the after shot. So they put you back in the clothes that they had picked out for you at the befores. They did your hair and makeup, so you're feeling pretty. They have you put heels on in the after photo so that there's muscle definition in the legs. And your legs are a little bit spread farther apart. I think you can kind of tell in the picture, but they try to make sure you can't tell. And then they have you pose. So you put your hands on your hips. And then after that, I went and used the bathroom again. And then I drank a bunch of water and ate a lot of snacks.
The fact that they had this person and the other people likely already on this very restrictive plan, and then 3 days before they have them on even more of a restrictive plan. There are so many ways that we can manipulate the body in order to appear a certain way, in order to have a specific kind of event. The event for this being that after picture that literally has nothing to do with their health and doesn't have anything to show about the sustainability of that program. Again, one of the many reasons why I don't do before and after pictures, because they're just so easy to manipulate. Even if it was 100% not manipulated, if they had the same shoes and the same lighting, same like way you were standing and everything, it still doesn't give me any quality information. One person's experience does not mean that another person is going to have that experience when you're talking about health and changes to the body. We're not the same.
It turned into a weird atmosphere. Like there was one time where I was talking to a girl, like we'd been exercising together for like 2 months. So we were friendly, and I was like, I'm like really hungry. And she's like, oh, like I'm completely satisfied. Like it's kind of making me feel weird about it. And then I had tried to talk.
Not being hungry is not something that, it's just a weird flex. That is a sign that metabolism is slowing down. So again, interesting flex.
To one of the people in charge of the program, because some of the people had been given extra protein, like the men were given extra protein. And she was like, well, we can, but none of the other women are taking extra protein. And so it's just like, I felt ashamed. Like I felt really bad. Like I felt ashamed of myself. And
can you imagine shaming somebody because they want to eat more protein? I can't relate.
At that point, like, of course I wanted to start taking laxatives and do all this other stuff because like maybe everyone else is, because I know that I'm doing the program exactly how everyone else is. So maybe they're doing other things that I'm not. And it's so unhealthy. Everybody gained their weight back after it. Like I was friends with them on Facebook. Like I saw it. The thing is, if they wanted to be like a good, upstanding company, they would just focus on health, because what they did actually sent me into a flare. I didn't know it at the time, but they sent me into a lupus flare.
Oh my
And
God.
like,
The actions that they had these people do were not in any way, shape, or form promoting the definition of health. The definition of health by the World Health Organization is complete physical, mental, social well-being, not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. This program, it's not a health program.
you know, like I was actually like actively, my body was attacking my thyroid. I was really, really sick. And I gained all the weight back after I stopped starving myself. And I was sick for like 6 months after. My period did not come back. I ended up going to a doctor to try to make my period come back. It didn't work. I ended up going for a CAT scan because I had so many migraines. I thought I had a brain tumor. Like, it turns out this kind of stuff is just stuff that's going to be normal for me when I flare. But like, that ended up sending me into a major flare for months and months and months. And it just affected everything. You know, if they wanted to be a good company, they would focus on health, you know, and whatever that means for whoever it is. You know, it shouldn't be about, I mean, obviously that sells is the weight loss, but it shouldn't be just about weight loss. It should be about people feeling good in their bodies and feeling healthy. And I did not feel healthy doing their program. I don't think anybody felt healthy if they were going to actually be honest with themselves.
Guys, don't believe everything you see in an infomercial. Don't believe everything you see. Advertisers are trying to portray everything the best they can to sell a product at the end of the day. You know, advertisers are not documentary creators. They're not trying to portray accuracy. They're trying to portray themselves in the best light possible.
There are so many nutrition documentaries out there that are just not exactly factual.
You know, if it works for you, if you're not losing a bunch of money, like, I don't care. I don't dislike you, but the company is not ethical. The workouts are great. I even enjoyed Shakeology. I know a lot of people don't. I don't know if I was just hungry, but I liked it. You know, I don't disagree that the products are fun or they're good. That's fine. But what they're actually selling is not real. They're selling like a dream that you're going to get super fit, but the people that you saw that got super fit aren't doing the same thing as you. They are being made sick. Just know that they don't have your best interests at heart and you need to look out for yourself.
Awesome. I think that's some great advice. Thank you so much for doing this interview. I'm glad you got away from that company, and I really appreciate you sharing your story with me.
So overall, I think you have my thoughts on this without having to recap. The biggest takeaway is just look at the actual actions that you're doing. If it is something that is sustainable, one, if you see yourself doing it for, you know, a long time, then that's one thing. And also make sure that it's helping and supporting your overall whole health, not just that physical piece. If you like this video, please subscribe. I'm working on tons of other content. I also have 2 nutrition LLCs, and so I am really busy, but I do really enjoy looking into nutrition related companies that I think are a little sketch, and also making these videos, talking about it, editing, all of that. And also thank you so much, Savy, for letting me react to this. I asked Savy if she would mind if I did a reaction to this, and she was like, yeah, go for it. And be sure to check out Savy's videos, her channel. I love watching her videos. And my neighbor was just walking. I did not expect to see this like man standing out there, but he's kind of at a distance at his house. So that just kind of scared me for a second. I will see you guys next time. All right, bye.